Hi again. This time Ray muses on how it is that freedom and peace can actually come to people who leave God's organization. I think here of a saying that was passed on to me by a friend. It says, "The mind which renounces once and forever a futile hope has its compensation in ever-growing calm." I have found that saying true in my own case. I know that it has proved true in the case of many others. Whatever the initial distress, a distress that sometimes follows the demeaning experience of being interrogated by men who in effect strip one of human dignity, make the weight of their authority felt, and presume to judge adversely one standing with God, however torn one may feel inside, afterward there does come a distinct feeling of relief, of peace. It is not just knowing that one is finally outside the reach of such men, no longer subject to their ecclesiastical scrutiny and pressure. Truth and the refusal to compromise truth brings freedom in many fine and wonderful ways. The more responsibly one makes use of that freedom, the finer the benefits. So I think here of a passage in Galatians where Paul says to the Galatians, under the stress of being compelled by Judaizers to somehow compromise with Jewish standards, he says, "You are called to freedom, brothers, but don't use your freedom as an inducement for the flesh, but through love slave for one another." It seems like that passage might be at the back of Ray's mind here. The greatest freedom enjoyed is that of being able to serve God and His Son, as well as serve for the good of all persons, untrammeled by the dictates of imperfect men, the freedom to serve according to the dictates of one's own conscience. The sense of having a great burden lifted off, the lightening of a heavy load, comes with that freedom. If genuinely appreciated, this gives one the desire to do not less, but more in service to the ones giving that freedom. Traumatic as the initial transition may be, it can lead to the development of a truly personal relationship with these two greatest friends, that is, friends with capital F. The organization has so persistently pushed its own self to the fore, has occupied such a large place on the spiritual scene, focusing so much attention on its own importance, that it has kept many from the closeness of fellowship with the Heavenly Father that should have been theirs. The figure of the organization has loomed so large that it has overshadowed the greatness of God's own Son. It's clouded the vision of many from appreciating the warm relationship He invites persons to share with Him, has distorted their perception of His compassionate personality. It is not surprising then that many persons, if expelled from the organization, feel a sense of aloneness, of being adrift, floundering, due to no longer being tied to some visible authority structure, no longer having their lives channeled into its rigid routine of programmed activity, no longer feeling the restrictive pressures of its policies and rulings. In a sense, it seems that often one must undergo a measure of such painful adjustment to come to appreciate fully what complete dependence on God and His Son really means. I do not know personally of anyone who in such circumstances has recognized the need to draw closer to God, to give serious attention to the reading of His Word, to show interest in others by trying to be of spiritual uplift and encouragement, who has not been able to weather the experience well, to come through it feeling greatly strengthened, more strongly fixed on the only solid foundation, faith in God's provision of His Son. They have realized more than ever before the intimate relationship they have with their Master and Owner as His disciples, whom He treats as personal friends, not like sheep that men have penned off in a mass enclosure, but sheep to whom the shepherd gives individual personal attention and care. Whatever their age, whatever the length of time it took them to come to this realization, the feeling they have fits the well-known saying, "Today is the first day of the rest of my life." Their outlook is both happy and positive, for their hopes and aspirations are dependent not on men but on God. In the next segment, weeds, wheat, the witnesses, and the worldly.